My name is Chris Jericho, and I am all in with All Elite Wrestling. It was the first huge move made by AEW after the announcement of the company. Chris Jericho had mainstream recognition, having been around in the business since the early 90s, first making a name for himself in World Championship Wrestling and Extreme Championship Wrestling, before making the jump to WWE at the end of the 90s. Jericho has made a career for himself as an innovator, having gone through multiple changes to his character throughout his career. He is known as one of the best talkers in the history of wrestling, and his body of work is Hall of Fame worthy for sure. This was a huge acquisition for AEW, who really needed a big announcement in those early stages to get fans talking. The move may have been obvious to some, but for most, it was considered to be a huge shock. Jericho had become known as the WWE lifer, having been established with them for years and having a relationship with Vince McMahon as well as many others in the company, and being a multiple-time champion. He had even said before that he would never wrestle for another promotion in the United States. So what changed? Jericho was a major player for many years in WWE, being the first ever undisputed champion by defeating The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night to unify the WWE and WCW Heavyweight Championships. After taking some time off from WWE to tour with his band Fozzy, Jericho began a big return to save us from Randy Orton. While that didn't pay off the way he may have liked, it eventually led to a heel turn, dropping the Y2J persona and winning gold along the way. Jericho would come and go, taking time off for other projects before coming back to programs that seemed to fall further and further down the card. Chris's final run in WWE may have been his most entertaining, as he became best friends with Kevin Owens. Jericho seemed to make anything that he wanted to stick with the fans work by creating things such as The List, and he and Owens took the United States and Universal Championships respectively. The duo were inseparable on the build to WrestleMania 33. Jericho has since said that the original plan was for them to clash for the Universal Championship, but it was later moved over to Goldberg and Lesnar, and the duo were pushed down the card for their big encounter. Shortly after the clash, Jericho would leave the WWE, returning for a few appearances including the 50-man Greatest Royal Rumble, but he would never have another full-time run there. In 2018, Chris Jericho shocked the world by challenging Kenny Omega for a dream match at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 12. This will be Jericho's first match outside of WWE since 1999, and it put a huge spotlight on NJPW. Now, while Jericho would lose to Omega here, the two would put on a 5-star match according to Dave Meltzer, which will also be the first 5-star Meltzer match in Jericho's career. Later that year, Jericho showed up at a little event put on by Omega, Cody Rhodes, and the Young Bucks called All In. He attacked Omega as a big surprise for the fans. He then announced that he was putting on the first ever Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea, and he had hoped to bring WWE superstars to the event, but Vince McMahon showed no interest, and instead Jericho turned to the guys from All In and brought in many wrestlers from Ring of Honor for the event. In January, Jericho made the announcement that he was joining AEW. He spoke in interviews about Vince McMahon giving him his blessing to sign with the company, only to later try to get him to renege on the deal after he realized it was actually going to happen. Jericho said that WWE did not want to match the offer and didn't have anything for him. Jericho was instantly slotted into the main event scene, taking on his rival Kenny Omega at AEW's first big show, Double or Nothing. Jericho would win and earn his spot in the first ever AEW Heavyweight Championship match, facing an upstart from the Elite, Hangman Adam Page. The two would meet at All Out and had a close competitive match, with Jericho eventually defeating Page to become the first ever AEW champion. Now, AEW was genius in the choice to make Jericho their champion. Jericho was easily the most recognizable name in the company, and heading to their big debut on cable with Dynamite. They needed that name power more than ever at the top to draw in the viewers. This Chris Jericho seemed to be a combination of all of his different gimmicks throughout the years, and he had said in interviews that he felt free to be creative, a creativity that he said WWE did not allow in their roster anymore. On the first night of Dynamite, Chris Jericho planted the seeds for the future, putting together a new faction that he would call the Inner Circle, including former LAX members Santana and Ortiz, a young rookie with tons of potential in Sammy Guevara, and the Muscle being another former WWE superstar, Jake Hager, formerly known as Jack Swagger. Jericho worked to elevate these men, and they worked to help him retain the championship as he dominated the top of the company. In contrast to Jericho's last run in WWE, while entertaining, he had been put in the middle of the card. Jericho is being used as a main eventer and a legend now, and he knew exactly how to elevate others. After eventually dropping the title to arguably the second most well-known name in the company, Jon Moxley, the former Dean Ambrose, Jericho had moved down the card slightly to help elevate others with his veteran status. Jericho and the Inner Circle have become top acts in AEW, mixing comedy with classic heel antics to keep the fans captivated. He doesn't feel all that different from how he did in WWE, but he feels more important. It feels like the way things are now with Jericho, everything matters more than it used to. He's elevating stars in the right way. In WWE, the typical way that a WWE star is put over is by simply just having them beat other stars, and having the people that are putting them over just lose to them. When a star reaches veteran status there, it's often the kiss of death in their career. In AEW, Chris Jericho rarely loses, but almost always makes his opponent look like they either could or should have won, making the fans think, damn, he was so close, and then thinking about how good his opponent is as opposed to thinking about how far he's fallen. It's a mentality that the National Wrestling Alliance had used for years with Ric Flair, having him face the top babyfaces of all the territories and make them look unstoppable, just to find a way to steal the win and leave his opponent looking better than they started. After recently putting over a newcomer to the national stage, Orange Cassidy, through a pandemic era of pro wrestling, as well as stealing the show with the Stadium Stampede, finding new ways to adapt to the industry with no fans, Chris Jericho has proven that he is indeed elite. So I hope you liked this first episode, and I'm looking forward to more ways to improve the videos. So please, give a like, a subscribe, and leave a comment to let me know how much you either enjoyed this or hated it. Give any feedback that you have, especially if you don't like the video, because that's the best way for me to improve future videos. Again, thank you for spending some time here and looking through the eyes of a lunatic.